What's up guys, Evil here. Welcome to SCX 10 Honcho upgrade volume 4. This upgrade is going to be primarily with VP stuff. I'm going to be installing the AX10/SCX10 8-degree knuckles and C's. Well, let's do it in this direction. This order. These are the Currie licensed SCX10 RockJock axles. This is the front set. And of course we're going to be doing the rear set, also in black. And then the Vanquish Titanium SCX10 link kit, which is required if you're going to install the Vanquish RockJock axles. Not required, you can make your own links, but stock SCX10 links will not work with the RockJock axle because it has a special 4-link mount. Quite a bit of it's different. So, but anyway, if you don't want to make your own links, Vanquish sells this set. It bolts straight up, gets all your geometry right to work right with the RockJock axle. So, another nice feature is that these are a Currie licensed product. They have the actual trademark Currie logo laser engraved on the tubes. Nice feature, something that the full scale part has. We're going to have to harvest a bunch of parts from the stock axles, so I'm going to go ahead and tear apart my Honcho here. Alright, I got that grungy axle off of there. We're going to rip it apart and steal the diff out of it, axles and the bearings, and transfer all that stuff over into the new housings. Alright, so let's move to the rear axle. Grimy. I think I'm going to give these axles a quick bath in simple green before disassembly. Let those soak a bit. And I expect this will be quite a mess on the inside since I had these axles sealed up with marine grease. Yummy. Drive shaft off. Pretty. Alright, so once we've robbed all the parts out of our other axle, we're going to start assembling the VP pumpkin. Just going to go ahead and I already put the bearings in on the inside. Just going to go ahead and install the pinion gear. There we go. Next will come the ring gear. Just drops in like so. Install the bearing caps. There you go. Next, I'm going to pop the bearing caps in. There you go. Assembled differential. Just need to put some grease on there and be good to go. Alright, next I'm going to remove my axles from the stock lockout. And once the cross pin's out, that should just slide right out. And then we'll need to pull that bearing out of the lockout. Alright, time to put the bearings in the axle tubes. Those should just pop right in. Should being the key word. There we go. And then I use this snap ring. Here we go. Use this snap ring to hold that in. So you do need a pair of snap nose or snap ring pliers. Just like so. And then depending on how tight the fit, you may have to grind the edges of that clamp if it rubs on the axle. Mine just feels like it's just barely doing it. So we got all three major pieces done. So now I just need to hook the tubes of the axle, which that one went right in there. And it'll be a grub screw. You just tighten down in there. And there's the axle with the tubes installed. Everything rotates nice and freely. Got to put some more grub screws in to tighten down on these tubes to make sure they're in there good and solid. Then we can do the diff cover. And just putting in the set screws that hold the tubes in place.
What's that?
Alright, well, got the diff ring and everything installed. If I get this to focus, you can see these studs along here. These are what hold the axle tube into the pumpkin. You want to make sure these are flush. These studs were a little bit long factory, so I had to grind just a bit off the end so they'll sit flush. Otherwise, the diff cover, when it goes on there, will not seat all the way. So just a little tip there for those of you guys who are doing it. Also, these outside studs, these are the ones that line up the axle tube to make sure all the angles are right. Those do not stop. If you keep tightening, they will hit the axle. So when tightening those down, Vanquish says to only tighten until the top of that bolt is flush with the surface. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and grease the gears and install the diff cover. I'm going to be using some Lucas Red and Tacky. I've switched from the previous brand I was using just because it was kind of cheap and it didn't ever last that well. So this stuff is supposed to hang on really good. So I've been running into my Wraith for a while. It seems to work pretty well. So when I pull the diffs apart, it's still hanging on. And that should be good. Cool. Let's install the axle truss. On these, I'm going to go ahead and use some blue Loctite. And just install the truss screws and this axle will be done. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and install the link mounts. Definitely want to use Loctite on these. This will just go right up there just like that. I'm going to use Loctite because these will be subject to a lot of vibration, so you don't want those coming loose on you. One complete Currie RockJock. One thing left to install now is the Delrin slider, which will it just bolts to the bottom of the axle right here to help protect the housing. Alright, got that skid installed. And this thing's ready to go on a truck. Let's move to the front axle. Alright, got the bearings in the pumpkin. Just going to pop the pinion gear in. Alright, pumpkin's done. Next up, axle tubes. Just installing the anchors to hold the axle tubes in. Time to install some knuckles and C-hubs. Pretty cool. You can see this is a high clearance knuckle. You can see where this linkage comes about the middle of the axle, and this one's way above it, so get that linkage up and out of the way. I had complaints the other day from somebody talking about putting bearings into VP's knuckles, and it is tight, there's no doubt. If you start to push the bearing in there and it doesn't want to go, pull it out and try again, and just keep going. It's misleading because the knuckle has a slant to it, but it's milled so that it's in line with the axle. So it may, you can see here, maybe if I can get this thing to focus, that the bearing doesn't necessarily follow the same plane as the metal. So it's a little bit misleading when you're putting it in there, getting it to line up, but just keep trying, keep putting it in there, and it'll just pop right in there, and it'll surprise you. So sometimes it takes a few minutes, sometimes they pop right in. So that's just due to tolerances, not due to anything being wrong. Put the stub axle in there, and these are ready to be mounted on the C-hub. Should be good. I'm going to go ahead and put the diff cover on here. Sorry, I got this stinking head cold. Seems like I always have them whenever I do these build videos, so you guys get to listen to my annoying nasally voice. Alright, let's do some link mounts and some C-hubs. Alright, so here's the part that confused me on the other axle. The front axle truss will take a 16mm bolt right here. The back will take a 14. If you try to use a 16 on the back, it bottoms out and the screws will not seat themselves against the top of the truss. Use a 16 on the front because the servo plate that mounts on there is thicker, so therefore you need the extra screw length to get it to seat. So I'm going to go ahead and get the truss mounted the rest of the way and then mount the servo plate. Alright, well there it is mounted up. Remember, 16's up front, 14's in the back. It's just not real clear in the directions. Kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop, so if you're building along, just keep that in mind. Let's install some steering knuckles. Alright, so there they are. So anyway, that's it for this episode. The next one will be finishing up the links and getting them installed on the truck. I appreciate you guys watching. I'll catch you on the next one.